Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Kocharhook. Thank you for joining me for this second installment of the conversation with the folks at Front Door Communities about the unhoused population in the downtown San Jose area. So with me again, I want to welcome, here, let me get their pictures up here. I've got Jeff Thompson and Alice Milner. Alice and Jeff, thanks for coming back for another part of this conversation. We appreciate you doing this.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
But one of the things that we really didn't talk about last time is I wanted to get a better sense for it with respect to the community you're serving. What percentage of the population are men? What percentage of the population are women? Alice, do you have any feel for that?
I do. So then this is fascinating. Countrywide, it's generally 70% men and 30% women. However, in Santa Clara County, they believe it's closer to 50-50.
Really?
Yeah. And I know that was my reaction too. I was really shocked to hear that. And I don't know if we understand the reasoning behind it. I'm sure the cost of living is a huge part of that. But so it's close to 50-50.
Okay. And of the two programs that you have, both the lunch program is for anyone, right? And then
Right.
the Lifted Spirits is oriented toward the ladies, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything specific for the men, or is there a plan for something that might be more for the male population? Jeff, are you guys thinking about anything in that regard?
So for the men, the main thing is to get some food to them and get a lunch. But we also give out hygiene kits with shaving equipment and dental, toothbrush, toothpaste, a bar of soap, a comb, and also through some very generous donations from churches in the area. We have quite a few clothes right now. So we have a lot of men's shirts. We have a lot of men's jackets, sweatshirts, and jeans, and we're able to give those out as well. And so that those are really appreciated by the folks that come to the front door, because they really have no other means of getting an extra pair of pants, or even a pair of pants to start with. And
Right.
We get people coming to our front door that don't have shoes on. So then we give them a pair of shoes and socks. And that's just so key. Can you imagine having to walk around all day barefoot?
You know, what you just mentioned struck me, because one of the things we talked about in the last show was the perception that people have that an unhoused person may be dangerous, that they tend to lean in the direction of call it criminal activity. So you would think that someone who doesn't have a clean shirt, doesn't have a pair of pants, doesn't have socks or shoes, they might just walk into some place somewhere and steal something. But that's not what these folks are doing. They're cognizant of what it is that they have. They're trying to maintain what they have. And the opportunity that you're providing them is to receive something that is fresh, clean, useful, workable, whatever. How has this impacted the individuals that you provide this to? Do they feel grateful for it, or do they feel like you're just sort of like pitying them?
Absolutely. The vast majority of the folks that come are super appreciative, and they're very nice. They're very happy to get our services, and honestly, they're just trying to get by. We try to do everything we do with compassion at Front Door Communities. So that's one of the things that we do. All of our volunteers make it a point to do the best we can to learn everybody's name, so that we can basically greet them by name, greet them with a smile. How are you doing today? And today we've got a lunch, and we've got shirts, or whatever other services we can offer that day, and they're very appreciative.
That's fantastic. So Alice, one thing I wanted to ask you, yeah, in previous discussions I've had with like the folks at Destination Home, and I think the two of you mentioned it when we met several weeks ago, there is a distinction that's made between the situational homeless and the chronic homeless.
Yeah.
When you look at your population, do you have any feel for how that mix is in the group at this point?
Yes, and I would say that we tend to serve some of the most marginalized, unhoused people. A number, perhaps as high as 90% of at least the women and perhaps the men we serve are living with mental health issues, and that
Mm,
compounds things. So if you have someone who is schizophrenic living on the street, they are the most vulnerable of the vulnerable, and a number of
mhm,
women that I interact with have are living with a mental health issue. They're escaping violence from a spouse. Uh, they have physical injuries. I mean, they're just so vulnerable. There are a number of women I've been seeing in the 3 years that I've been volunteering, and to define someone as, quote, chronically unhoused would be a year or longer.
mm.
Uh, there's a woman on the sidewalk that we've been trying to get help for 5 years.
Wow.
And she falls into that category of chronically unhoused. And it's also a difficult, it's a group that is difficult to get into housing. And a lot
Mm,
of that has to do with mental health issues. So some people will say, oh, well, they just want to live on the street. But they just want to live on the street because they have a mental health condition that makes it impossible for them to be inside without a lot of support. And
right.
that's where some of that misconnect. A lot of veterans, 13% of the unhoused population in San Jose are vets. A lot of them are
13%, did you say?
13%.
Well, that's astounding.
That's
That's
a staggering number. And if you're suffering from PTSD, maybe you can't be inside. I've had women tell me that they had to throw away the shoes I gave them because after they put on the shoes, somebody followed them. And so they have the association of the shoes,
ah,
the clothing. We have some women who firmly believe, this is not funny, firmly believe that they've been implanted with a microchip, and no one at the hospital will believe them. But everything is wrong in their lives because of this microchip. And they believe that. And those are some of the issues that make it so difficult for these people. Is they might be able to hold a conversation and come across, very nice. I mean, I've some women, how are you? Everything's great. I'm just so happy. But once you dig a little deeper, and I have an opportunity to do that with the boutique, which has now been reduced to a window at this point because of COVID. In the 5 minutes that I interact and I'm giving them, choices of clothing, you get this outpouring. They just need to share all of these things that have happened.
mhm,
Woman recently, I don't know, got into an altercation with a man. He shoved her, somebody threw hot coffee, he broke her arm, she went to the hospital. She waited, so they said they weren't sure they were going to be able to do surgery because she had waited too long. They eventually did surgery. She didn't want to tell them she was unhoused. She did recovery for 5 days on somebody's couch, and she's now injured again. And
mm.
it's just these are the types of issues that the men and the women face over and over and over again. And it's actually cheaper, interestingly enough, much cheaper. If you just want to look at the bottom line, take out the compassion and all that, just say bottom line. It is actually cheaper to get people into supportive housing, get them the mental health care they need, get them
Right.
the physical health care they need. And, we often joke about putting ourselves out of business, but, it's, we're grateful to be there and we're grateful to be doing the work, but boy, I would love to see a whole lot more of these folks get into some stable housing.
I remember from my conversations with the folks at Destination Home that in looking at those numbers and the cost with respect to first responder activities, because when someone is injured or if they send the police or they send the fire department or an ambulance or whatever, that there's costs associated with all of that. Okay.
It's huge.
The other thing that struck me from what you were just talking about, I think that pretty much all of us, everyone that's watching this show or that might come across this show, somewhere in your life, in your family, in your friends, and whatever, there are people who are challenge with some type of depression or some other kind of situation. Maybe they became addicted to oxycodone because they had an injury and they got prescribed and they couldn't get off it. So in our lives, we will have been confronted with people that are like the folks that you're serving. So to generalize the population, to demean them, to consider them marginal, to consider them not important or whatever, think about the people that you know that have a situation that is not unlike what they have from a mental or physical addiction type perspective. Jeff, there are lots of different facets to this problem of the unhoused, right? So can you talk a little bit about the, front door communities is not trying to solve the problem of homelessness. Front door communities is trying to provide those who are in that situation with a decent meal, maybe a place to sit down for a few minutes, somewhere to take a shower or whatever. Talk to me about where your organization fits into this continuum of trying to solve the problem.
Right. Well, the first level of need is the basic needs of food and clothing, and those are the things that we're providing now. And what we would like to do is to go the next step and partner with other agencies in the area to be able to, when we encounter someone who has a mental illness issue, that we could refer them to get some help from another agency that maybe Front Door Communities can't provide right now, but maybe another agency could, and we'd like to be able to get those services to this person, because we're in contact with them every day.
Right.
And we just don't know, we at the moment, we don't have those connections to go to the next level. The unhoused situation is complicated. It defies a simple solution. We can meet the day-to-day needs, as I say we're doing, but then holding a job is required to pay rent. And if there's varying degrees of mental illness on a surprisingly large number of the folks that we serve, and they may not be able to easily hold a job without some treatment or some type of support. So then that's where the supportive housing comes in, because if they can you basically have to get the income, the housing, the day-to-day needs, all these things have to fall into place before you kind of reach critical mass where you can move out and have a long-term solution.
Right. Thank you. That's very, very well defined. Appreciate that. There are two things that I'd like to have us focus on in the last half of this session. One is how the average person, the average San Jose citizen can help. What can they do? What do you guys need? What do you need them to understand? Maybe it's even just an attitudinal shift that might help the whole situation. I want to talk about that. And the other thing I want to talk about is something that you folks had told me about when I first visited, in that the property that the church was housed in, it is now the location for Front Door Communities, has been sold, and there are some plans for a new construction on that site in a couple of years. And so I want to talk about what you're looking for in terms of your plans for relocation or whatever. So let's talk first about the people. What can we do? Those of us who are not currently volunteers or not in a position to maybe dedicate time and effort because of our situation. What can we do? What can the average person do to support the initiative? Alice, what do you think?
So one thing I would encourage people to do, which I think might help them feel better about this, maybe they'll feel better and feel worse, and that is to really educate themselves about not just the problem, but some of the reasons behind it. I think if you are aware, for instance, and I learned, like I said, a lot from this homeless census. It's about a 50-page document, but it's very eye-opening. It can be helpful when you see how many women over 50 are unhoused, or how many vets are unhoused, how many people, are unhoused because of a domestic violence issue. Sometimes I think it can really help. It humanizes it. And I think that's what's missing from a lot of the narrative, is humanizing that every homeless person, or every unhoused person, or every person on the street, or street person, or whatever label we give them, they're somebody's mother or daughter, somebody's son or cousin or brother. They're all people that came from somebody's family who have fallen on very difficult times for all kinds of reasons. And once you're on the street, it can be very, very difficult to get the kind of help you need. So I think if people started there, that would actually help them have a better understanding, and then might hopefully lead to a more compassionate way to act and help the situation. And then the door is wide open for all sorts of things. So people can do, Girl Scouts have done sock drives for us. We have San Jose Women's Club and History Club of Los Gatos, and they regularly collect money, because yes, we do need money. And also clothing, hygiene items, that sort of thing. Very useful. If people don't have a lot of time or don't feel comfortable coming downtown, which is a reality for some people, they can do a neighborhood drive. They could say, hey, everyone, drop off socks in the next 10 days, or drop off hygiene items, do an adult diaper drive. They're very expensive. We try not to pay for them if we can, and we get them donated, and they're so critical for someone to be able to sleep in a diaper at night, so they don't have to get out of their car, that sort of thing. So those are a few ideas. Jeff, did you want to add to that?
Sure. Yes. So a number of churches have done drives. As a matter of fact, there was a church in downtown Los Gatos that did a tremendous drive. 65 bags of clothes were delivered.
Oh, wow.
And we're still offering some of those now, even though it's been a few months after receiving them. So that's the type of thing that can really make a huge difference. And but it's also true that financial support is very helpful. Every nonprofit needs financial support to continue. And we're not different than any other nonprofit offering services to the unhoused. So financial support is also very helpful.
Right. And I think something, Alice, that you said really just dives right into the core of the thing, and that is learn, find out, get data, right? We tend to not have, I think the average person here in our community that lives in San Jose tends to not have a clear understanding of the order of magnitude of the problem, and then B, the contributing factors, those things that have in our either it's the economy or whatever, or that have contributed to it. You mentioned 13% of the unhoused are veterans. Well, how come we're allowing our veterans to go through this type of a situation? So I think learning and understanding and recognizing, like you said, that it's someone's brother, sister, mother, father, uncle, cousin, son, daughter, whatever, is going to be real important. And if you recognize that, it's all part of the human situation. We need to be kind to one another. If we're kind to one another, show some love for one another, it heals us all. So thank you for that. So where do you guys go from here relative to the physical facilities? Jeff, have you begun to investigate options for locations? The assumption being that when there is a transition that you may not be able to have space in the existing location. So
Yes, we're pretty sure that that the building we're in now is not going to be able to be a long-term facility for us. So there's a couple of options. One is that we could go it alone in trying to find another facility for us. And right now we're using about, well, not pre-pandemic, I should say, we were using about 3,000 square feet. And that was because we wanted to be able to offer space for a sit-down meal for 30 women. And that we also had a closed boutique where women could come in and actually have a very dignified shopping experience instead of just being handed a piece of clothing that they didn't have any chance to pick out or look at. They're actually given a choice of several different of garments to look at, and it's a much more it's what you would normally expect if you went to a store, like
right.
the rest of us do. So that, and then there's storage for food requires space. And we also had a sleeping room with 7 or 8 cots set up, which was, you wouldn't think that was a big deal, but the women are so exhausted sometimes by the time they get to our facility because they're unable to sleep all night for a variety of reasons. And they so appreciated just the ability to crash in a safe place for a few hours. And that of course takes space as well. The other option is to partner with another agency in the area. So we're putting our feelers out to see if there's another complementary or other agency that we could team up with. And maybe we could combine resources in a complementary way to keep both organizations' services going. But real estate is not cheap, and rent is not cheap. So maybe if we combined resources, we could both benefit each other in a very beneficial way.
Yeah, cool. So are there any churches in the immediate, your facility was originally a church. Are there any other churches in the immediate area that may have some space that you might be able to collaborate with?
There may be. There's a church near St. James Park, which you mentioned on the last show. And so there are a few, and we're going to investigate and reach out to them.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So, well, we've got about 4 minutes left in our show here. So, Alice, let's summarize a little bit about the services that you provide and how we all can help.
Okay, so for Lifted Spirits, there are a number of ways to get involved. It can be hands-on volunteering. We have a volunteer screening process because working with this population, it takes a combination of humanity and also boundaries and grit. We have always in need of clothing and toiletry items, hygiene items. So people are welcome to organize that with a group or do it individually. But we're always excited when somebody wants to put together a clothing drive, a hygiene drive, a sock drive. Those things are always in need. Sometimes people like to donate money for a specific reason. So it could be, we want to sponsor, 30 women for lunch, or we want to sponsor 70 men for, something. So those, I think I invite people to think creatively, and I think it has to be fun if you want to do it as a group. So I think I mentioned the Girl Scouts or some of these women's groups. They're always also very much want to support women. And we're not saying that men don't have tremendous need. They absolutely do. But women are much more likely to be assaulted on the street, and they have a period once a month. So there's a number of issues that are unique to women that we try to fill. And so, doing a Poise or Depends drive doesn't sound very sexy, does it? But it's so critical.
I'm sure it would.
So critical.
It's one of those things that unless you experience it, you can't appreciate it, right?
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. And
are people able to make these kinds of specific initiative donations or concepts using your website? Are they, I think there's a donation link on your website, right?
Yes,
But can
so
you
we-
specify?
Yes, so if you go to the donation link, excuse me, there's actually a whole menu. So it's ways to, it'll say, how can you help? And so it can be, you know, donating cash through our PayPal account. People could certainly mail a check. The address is there. Our phone number is there. They can call to arrange for a drop off. We still do what we call a contactless one because not everyone is comfortable with COVID. So we have a big cart that we can wheel out and we remain masked. We can just back it up to somebody's car and then they can unload it.
Cool.
Sometimes people are more interested, so they come in. In fact, we learned about you through your wife who
So
came.
my wife who came
Yep,
and,
who brought in
donated some
donations
things.
and made
Absolutely.
this wonderful introduction. So you just
Absolutely.
never know where these connections are going to lead.
That's
So
true.
we love any and all support. I would definitely like to put in the plug for a future home. The building that we're in has been sold to a developer, and we've been told we probably have 18 months to 2 years at max. And
Right.
so, yeah, we're very much interested in remaining downtown because that's where the folks are. There's 1,800 unhoused people in District 3.
That's you're in District 3, so 1,800 people there. Okay.
And like
So-
I said, City Hall is there, the library. So that's where people are. So
Oh,
in
yeah.
other words, some people will say, oh, why did you start? In other words, we didn't go out and say, let's bring in unhoused people. The unhoused people were there and
They came to you.
we
Yeah.
found a way to serve them. Exactly.
So Jeff, in the last little bit here, if someone has any connections or opportunities or possibilities for, for a relocation thing or some sort of collaboration thing, would it be appropriate for them to reach out to you? You're the
Yes.
chairman, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yes, a phone call would be great, or an email to our front door communities email, which is on our website, would be great.
Okay, great. Well, I hopefully someone who's watching this show will have an idea. All we're looking for, folks, is an idea. Okay, you don't necessarily have to solve the whole problem, but if you have an idea or a thought or some way that you think you can contribute, even if it's not something that we've talked about here specifically, please do so. So, Alice, Jeff, thank you again for being willing to take the time to have this conversation. I appreciate it. I've learned a lot, and I hope that our viewers have learned a lot. And we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for the work and the effort that you're putting in to help the unhoused community. So ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to send in those queries and questions, info@referencepointtv.com. You also have the website link for Front Door Communities and can check that out directly and learn more and reach out to them directly as well. So folks, again, thanks for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen of the audience, we'll see you next time on Reference Point.